Today's show is brought to you by the Pittsburgh Opera. The Pittsburgh Opera is presenting an adulterous double feature not seen here since 1996. It's got jealousy, two-timing, and revenge all united in the back-to-back tragedies of Cavalleria Rusticana and Pagliacci. Possessiveness, machismo, and rage fuel their bloody conclusions, and you can enjoy these two amazing operas on the same night, November 9th through the 17th. That's with the Pittsburgh Opera, who asks, where can we take you? Learn more at pittsburghopera.org/citycast.
Today on CityCast Pittsburgh, sweater weather is upon us, and I've gotten some of my favorite cozy weather outfits from local thrift stores. But there's so many places to look for secondhand clothes here in Pittsburgh, and if you've ever walked into a thrift store and didn't know where to start, you are not alone. So for anyone looking for a new winter wardrobe, we are bringing back an episode with a thrifting expert who is telling us all about their favorite shops in the city and sharing some tips for leaving with a clothing haul you'll love. It's Tuesday, November 12th. I'm Sophia Lowe, and here's what Pittsburgh's talking about. I'm with Hannah Horstmeyer, a sustainable fashion advocate. Thank you so much for joining us on CityCast.
Thank you so much, Sophia. I'm happy to be here.
I am so excited to talk about thrifting. It's something I've really been wanting to be more intentional about. So to kick us off, I would love to hear about your favorite thing about the Pittsburgh thrift store scene. Is there anything particularly distinctive about it? Something you can't really get in other cities?
Actually, yes. I wouldn't necessarily say it's like any particular item or store. It's actually the exact opposite. I would say that it's probably the variety of stores that I can find in Pittsburgh. I've lived in a couple of different cities across the country. I've visited cities in other countries, and I usually find that like every city specializes in like one type of vintage, whether it be like formal wear, work wear, denim. And I feel like Pittsburgh does a really good job of sort of catering to multiple niches. And I feel like I can find most of everything that I want in this city.
Totally. Is there anything you really like to shop for in particular?
I'll be real. I'm a sucker for any vintage workwear, vintage denim. I'm pretty picky. I think that sometimes it can be a little intimidating, especially with denim. So I'm really into anything old, anything with a bunch of holes in it. That's sort of my game. Any vintage like graphic tee, the holier the better. The more see-through, the better.
I will definitely have some questions about denim for you in a moment, but I want to start kind of general. So I find that, when you walk into a new thrift store, sometimes it can be a little intimidating. You don't know where things are. Maybe you don't know what they specialize in. So what is the first thing you do when you walk into a thrift store?
That's a really good question. The first thing I do when I walk into a thrift store usually is I like to do like a quick scan because like you said, every thrift store has usually got like one or two things that they're really good at, whether it's like a curated thrift store or you're just going into like a Goodwill or a Salvation Army. So I usually do like a quick scan of the store. I don't like to get caught up in one specific spot for too long. I'm also usually big on material makeup. I typically don't care about like the style of clothing as long as like the material's like good. And by good, I mean, I prioritize natural fibers. I usually go for like cotton, hemp, linen. Actually, when I walk through the thrift store, I don't even usually look at what I'm looking at. I usually just feel it.
Oh, okay.
I've been thrifting since, for almost 15 years at this point. And I have gotten pretty good at being able to decipher like what materials are going to itch, what materials are going to feel good. And I usually take like the pattern or the style as like a secondary thing because usually the material will kind of give a good indication to how that piece is going to fall, regardless of the color or what it looks like on the shelf or on the rack.
So I think one of the things that scares me the most about thrift shopping is not being able to try on clothes because not all thrift stores have, a spot where you can change, try things on, see how they fit. So what do you do if you don't have a changing room in the store?
firstly, unfortunately, is many years of practice. But after the many years of practice is I learned my measurements. I don't go off of any size. I don't go off of like a brand. If like I fit a particular size in a brand, especially if I'm looking for vintage, because a lot of those vintage sizes tend to be smaller anyways. And
Oh, yeah.
I don't really want to think about like the number size. I feel like as somebody who like wears a lot of like women's clothing, I'm so tired of like sizes being pushed on me. I don't really care what size I am. I don't really care if I'm a size 12 in something or a size 10 in something. I care that it fits my measurements. If you don't know your measurements or you don't know what type of piece would fit you based off of measurements, you can bring a measuring tape with you. I know that it seems kind of goofy, but if you can't try something on and you can't return it, I think it's worth looking a little funny in a thrift store with a measuring tape, especially if it's something that you hope to have for a really long time.
Yeah, I'm with you. I'm fine looking a little goofy. I feel like a measuring tape would make me look less goofy actually than me like trying to put a sweater on top of like the 5 layers I'm already wearing.
Yes. Also, decision fatigue is a thing. When you are in a thrift store and you're surrounded by all of these items, it's basically a type of blindness that you get when you're in a thrift store and you think all of these things look really good. And then you get out of the store and you're like, oh my God, what did I buy? Because it's like, you're like, I really thought I liked this. And so I think also being able to like know what actually fits you might be able to cut down on like some of those things where you leave the store and you're like, why did I buy that? That like literally isn't my style, doesn't fit me. And like, I don't know, maybe it only went with what you were wearing in the thrift store if you tried to try it on in the thrift store. So being able to like isolate things like that, I think can also be helpful.
So let's talk about a little bit about what not to buy or maybe what you don't buy. What are red flags for you when you're thrifting? Is there any kind of clothing you'll skip over entirely?
Ooh, yes. And it's usually very typically like hard to care for materials.
Which include
Like maybe like silks and certain types of leather. Doesn't mean that I won't buy leather, doesn't mean that I won't buy silk. Those are both like really good materials. And if you can find them secondhand, like you can get some really high quality pieces. And I'm definitely not saying don't do it. But I also am the type of person who thinks that I can like take on more projects than I think. And sometimes I'll see a piece that's ripped or see a piece with like leather that's peeling and I'll think, oh, it's not that big of a deal. And it really is that big of a deal because I won't wear it because it is a little too worse for wear.
What happened to the holes? You said you were all about holes.
I am all about holes, but that's with usually 100% cotton or like leather. Like sometimes I have to evaluate whether a piece is worth being repaired. And if a piece is like past the point of what I'm willing to spend on a repair, because I am willing to get things repaired, but I have to kind of make myself slightly stricter guidelines for what I'll pick up because I'll be like, oh, I'll fix that. I'll add that to the mending pile. Famous last words.
Well, what if you're trying to sell clothes that you don't wear anymore and you don't want to go through the hassle of something like Depop or shipping them? Are there any thrift stores you like selling clothes to?
Rest in peace, Buffalo Exchange.
Yes.
If any former Buffalo Exchange employees are listening, you guys were like literally my favorite place to go to. But I really do like Avalon Exchange. I find that they have a really nice, like curated collection of items. And I don't think it's like any particular trend or style. So I'm thankful for them. I also recently went to Clothes Minded for the first time. And I thought that their stuff was really well priced. I thought they had a really great selection of like vintage and like trendy and kind of timeless pieces that, yeah, those are two favorites that stick out. And yeah, shout out to you guys. I really like them.
Yeah, Clothes Minded, I've sold some stuff in person, but I also found out that they have a form on their website where you're able to like upload pictures of your clothes and fill all of that in online. So I think that's super convenient.
Yeah, and I don't know of many businesses or secondhand stores that do that.
Right? It's awesome.
Yeah, hats off to them.
And are there any other thrift store etiquette tips that you have after, 15 years of doing this?
I would say, like, take your time. Don't rush. There is, as we all know, an influx of clothing all the time. We're not experiencing any shortage of secondhand clothing. Just kind of take your time and be polite to each other. If somebody gets to something that before you do, it's not really worth like making a stank face. Like chances are you'll find something just as cool later. You guys are all in this together, like trying to find things, trying to curate your personal style, maybe trying to make a few extra bucks. Just be polite and be kind to each other if you're out there.
Today's show is brought to you by Handmade Arcade. Here on the CityCast Pittsburgh team, we love shopping small and local, and every winter you are guaranteed to see all of us at Handmade Arcade's annual holiday market. It's going down this year, December 6th and 7th, and you've got to put it on your holiday to-do list. Our crew has picked up all kinds of unique gifts there, like gorgeous handmade wooden cutting boards, a crocheted hat that makes you look like a cute little brown bear, ornaments, art, jewelry, candles, handbags, prints, even a calendar once with monsters like Godzilla taking over national and local parks. Like, it is the best. This year's market will feature over 275 makers, plus free activities and live demonstrations like beginner ceramics, glass blowing, and screen printing. Again, that's December 6th and 7th downtown at the David L. Lawrence Convention Center. Tickets to shop at the main event are free, but you do have to register, or you can be a VIP like me and shop early without the crowds. That's Handmade Arcade's Friday night preview party or during Saturday's early birdie option. Get all the information and your tickets at handmadearcade.org.
Ryan Reynolds here for, I guess, my 100th Mint commercial. No, don't. I mean, honestly, when I started this, I thought I only have to do like 4 of these. I mean, it's unlimited premium wireless for $15 a month. How are there still people paying 2 or 3 times that much? I'm sorry, I shouldn't be victim blaming here. Give it a try at mintmobile.com/save. Whenever you're ready.
$45 upfront payment equivalent to $15 per month. New customers on first 3-month plan only. Taxes and fees extra. Speed slower above 40 gigabytes. See details.
Okay, so now that we know how to shop in a thrift store, let's talk about where to shop. So starting kind of broadly again, what are your favorite shops with just, a pretty good variety of clothing? It maybe doesn't have a specific angle, like you can walk in and find something for most occasions.
I've got to say, one of my favorite shops in Pittsburgh that I kind of have to hold my hands behind my back every time I go in there because I just want to buy everything is Twisted Vintage.
Yes.
They are off of Penn Ave. I think they're technically Garfield, right across the street from Spack Brothers. I am amazed at the selection of items every time I go in there, as well as the prices, because they have some really nice, just like casual everyday pieces. And I'm always surprised when nothing is over like $35.
Yes.
I guess I'm a little jaded. I'm used to like New York City prices where somebody will sell like a sweatshirt for like $75. So when I go into Twisted Vintage and they have...
I think you could get a whole haul there for $75.
No, exactly. And like you don't even need it. You can find like one good piece and you're good to go. They're probably like my favorite everyday type thrift store or curated thrift.
What about vintage clothing?
So I went to this place right after I moved to Pittsburgh. And I've got to say, one of the most impressive selections of vintage and like vintage workwear is Mellow & Sons in Lawrenceville. And like I said, I'm a sucker for an old t-shirt. And they had the holiest of holy t-shirts with some really good graphics on them. Also have really good denim. Mellow & Sons in Lawrenceville is one of my favorites.
And when you say denim, are we talking like pants specifically, jackets, all of it?
Pretty much all of it. I would also say like along with denim, like really good canvas and like vintage Carhartt, even though like today's Carhartt's also pretty good in my opinion. But yeah, a lot of like canvas, denim, think like big bulky fabrics, jackets.
Okay, thank you very much. I have been looking for vintage Carhartt or just not full price Carhartt. So I'm heading there when it gets chilly.
Yeah, heck yeah.
Obviously, we can't skip Pittsburgh sports attire. I feel like you can find that in any thrift store here, but are there any places where their selection is just unparalleled?
I actually don't have a whole lot of experience with the Pittsburgh sportswear. Like you said, I have found it pretty much everywhere I've gone.
Host Megan Harris just turned me on to the closet in Bellevue. She
Oh,
says there is a ton of vintage Pittsburgh gear. I browsed the shop like just very briefly online, and I saw this Taco Bell shirt from the 80s that I'm kind of obsessed with. So I think maybe you'd find some funky t-shirts there too. If you're not into sports, also something to check out, clearly.
oh, heck yeah. And I also find, not specific like thrift stores, but I find that a lot of the antique malls and stuff around here, like the Ohio Street Antique Mall usually has a lot of really good like Pittsburgh regalia. So they're not specifically apparel, but they are, I think technically in Bellevue, they have a few vendors in there that do have a lot of like Pittsburgh specific stuff.
So as we're wrapping, this thrift store tour of Pittsburgh, do you have any other personal favorite places that you want to shout out?
I had one more that I kind of wanted to give a shout out to, and it's Thrift in Lawrenceville as well. Not clothing, but I found, bless you, Thrift, I found an entire set of Fiesta ware dishes in there.
Amazing.
Yes, and they also have a really good selection of vintage, like higher designer, but also like more popular designers, along with their just like regular thrift store.
Mhm.
And I really appreciate a thrift store that can kind of do both and cater to different people. So Thrift is always going to be one of my favorites.
So Hannah, clearly you're a thrifting extraordinaire, but I know you're actually doing a no-buy year right now. So with a couple exceptions, you're not spending any money on clothes. What inspired you to do this, and how's it going so far?
Thanks for asking about it. So what inspired me to do it was I really wanted to work on curating my own sense of personal fashion, and like my own kind of like personal identity surrounding appearance and the way I express myself. And I found that I had a really hard time doing it when I was constantly bringing things into my closet. And I found that I wasn't really able to take the time to kind of wear and appreciate the items that I had when I was like kind of always on the hunt for things. There is a TikTok creator called Tiny Jewish Girl, and she kind of coined this phrase called the desire to acquire.
I have that.
So do I. And I found that the voice in my head that is the desire to acquire voice has been quieter since starting my no-buy year. The main reason for it was to quiet the desire to acquire voice. And I think I've been successful so far.
So if you do want to get clothes during your no-buy year, how are you doing that?
I have found the joy of clothing swaps. There were so many clothing swaps that I went to this year. I think I went to 3. One was actually organized by Pittsburgh's own Flux Bene. I think this wasn't even the first year she had done it, which was really cool. She did it at the Union Project and had so many people turn out. I even volunteered for it. And it was a really good turnout. But clothing swaps have definitely been my go-to. And also, if I feel like I need a refresh, I've also gotten really into like mending and getting my clothes altered.
So when you go to a clothing swap, are you required to bring anything? Or if you say, you're just there to find new items, can you just go and take things?
I would say that every clothing swap is probably a little different, but in my experience, I don't think there was ever the requirement to bring items. I think it's been encouraged just to sort of make sure that there's like things going in and out like throughout the day.
Right.
But I don't think that it's ever been required at any clothing swap I've been to. I've also found that there's just been so much clothing. I've never been to a clothing swap where they've been like, could we have more stuff?
And then what about getting clothes fixed and mended? Do you do that yourself? Do you bring them to people in Pittsburgh?
I have very basic mending experience. So I do rely on Old Flame Mending, who does all of my alterations on all of my clothing. I have taken ripped linen. I've taken pants that were too big. I've taken formal dresses. And I have had an amazing experience every single time. They do kind of like more traditional alterations if you need something made smaller. But they also are able to make, which a lot of like traditional alteration services aren't, they are also able to make things bigger.
Oh.
Which my weight fluctuates. Sometimes things are too small for me and they're things that I don't really want to get rid of. And they've been able to change that and help kind of find a way to make them bigger again. And I really appreciate that because I don't really want to get rid of my clothes. I want to keep wearing them.
That's really thoughtful. I will take you up on those suggestions because I have some clothes I love and would be totally wearable again with some mending. Hannah, you've shared so many other resources I'm also excited to check out. Thank you so much for joining us.
Of course. Thank you so much, Sophia, for having me. Love any chance to talk about secondhand clothing and swapping.
That's all for today here on CityCast Pittsburgh. If you're still looking for more thrift store recommendations, we have a really comprehensive list on our website. That's pittsburgh.citycast.fm. We'll include a link to the article in the show notes too, but don't sleep on our website. We've got all sorts of good stuff from the podcast and newsletter, so you don't need to dig through your inbox to find new places to check out around town. We'll be back tomorrow morning with more news from around the city. See you then!
And if you follow me on Instagram, I literally wear it every day. I swear to God, I do wear other clothing.